Welcome to the Grand Archive, your gateway to adventure in the realms beyond. How's it going, Rogues Gallery? And today, we're going to take a look at the Grand Archive demo deck. These demo decks were made with the intent of introducing new and interested players to Grand Archive. So as such, they are pretty simple, but do a great job of teaching folks the mechanics of the game. They're also meant to be given out for free at your local game store. So if you are interested in Grand Archive and you want your LGS to carry the game, tell them to reach out to the makers of Grand Archive. There are links on the Grand Archive website, gatcg.com, where your LGS can go and, request to carry the game. You may also be given one of these demo decks if you attend an event or convention where the Grand Archive team is present, and they typically have these decks available to give out to folks who are interested and maybe even play test some games. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at one of those demo decks, go through every single card, give you a good foundation as to what Grand Archive is, how a lot of the cards function, the basic layout of the cards, and all of that good stuff. We'll also talk about the differences between these demo decks and future demo decks, because there is a key difference, and we'll get to that. So this is the first iteration of the Grand Archive demo deck. It features one of the main characters, Lorraine, the Wandering Warrior. Now, the interesting thing to note before we start talking about this is that this current demo deck is not going to be legal for official sanctioned tournament play for Grand Archive. And why is that? It's because the cards in this demo deck are actually thicker than what the final retail print version is going to be. Because of that reason, these cards are not going to be viable for tournaments for Grand Archive, but they're still a fantastic way to learn the game. With that said, the second printing of these demo decks will be. They will have the proper card stock, and you will be able to use those for official sanctioned tournaments. They will also come in significantly different packaging, as you can see here. Image given to me courtesy of the Grand Archive team. All right, so let's take a look at this little rules insert. It's pretty simple actually, but I figured, I'm gonna give you the full experience here, show you exactly what comes in at least this version of the demo deck. So here you can see we have Grand Archive, we have a QR code here that I'm gonna try to lay flat that you may or may not be able to scan here, as well as the anatomy of a card. We have memory, reserve cost, elemental requirement at the top. What's great about this demo deck is that you don't really have to worry about the more complicated mechanics like the elemental requirements, because the element here is just going to be the normal type. We have the card typing here. This is an ally warrior human. We have the card stats, their attack and defense, and the mechanics here. If you're familiar with card games at all, this is going to be a pretty familiar thing. Also, you can see here that this is the LGS Demo Deck 2022. Like I said, this is something that you can find at the local game store or given out for free at various conventions where the Grand Archive team is attending. We also have various other things on the back here, just kind of like some quick rules things on how to pay for costs, phases of the turn, starting the game, all of this good stuff. But we're going to talk about that as we go on. One important thing to note though is you actually have two decks for any Grand Archive setup. You have your material deck and your main deck. The material deck has these blue costs in the top corner and also consists of your champion. We also have the main deck, which has the gold or yellow cost in the top corner. So that's the easiest way to differentiate between what cards go into your main deck and then what cards go into the material deck. So now let's take a look at all the cards, talk about what they do, and kind of just give a general breakdown. Of course, we're going to talk about our champion. First, we have Lorraine, the Wandering Warrior. This is her level 1 version. When you start out in Grand Archive, you actually start out with a spirit. Now, this is a lost spirit. It just has the normal typing. More advanced decks, and basically that just means any deck that's not this demo deck, or if you're playing in limited, this is going to be one that embodies an element. So you're going to have like the spirit of fire, water, or wind. But this one is the lost spirit, so it just is the normal typing. On enter, draw 7 cards. So this is actually how you start off the game. And this is, your starting hand is what is dictated on the spirit card. So you're going to draw 7 cards here, and this is going to be your life total down on the bottom. Up here we have the level and the cost, and of course for the starting spirit it does have no cost. You will be leveling up your spirit into your champion as the game progresses. So for example, in this deck, you'll be leveling it up directly into Lorraine, the Wandering Warrior, which does have a cost of 1 to play. She says, champion warrior human, she has 20 life, and on enter, you may materialize a weapon card with a memory cost of 0 from your material deck. Now this blue cost here is the memory cost. So for this, I think the only option here is to materialize the ornamental greatsword. And what that means is you just, go find it in your material deck and then you just put it directly into play. That's basically what materialize means, which is great. So when you level her up, you go and get a 0 cost weapon, which is great. She also has this 20 life down here. And then we also have the level 2 version of Lorraine Blade Master. This one's going to cost 2 to play, champion warrior human. This is Lorraine Lineage, which is a very important mechanic for Grand Archive because you can't actually level up your champion into a different champion unless it has this lineage ability. So this lineage ability says, Lorraine Lineage, Lorraine Blade Master must be leveled from a previous level Lorraine champion. So you can only level up Blade Master from a previous Lorraine. It also says, on enter until end of turn, Lorraine's attacks gain +2 and gain on kill draw a card, which is great. So she has this built-in removal. You're going to want to be able to swing with a ability or with a weapon like that ornamental greatsword that we just showed off. But once you can do that, then you can kill some units and draw some cards, which is great. She also has 24 life, which means as you progress in the game, your life total increases. As you can see here, starts out at 15, goes to 20, and then 24. You do have options to level up beyond level 2, with currently level 3, but that is not available in this demo deck. Like I said, this is a very, very rudimentary version of Grand Archive, great for teaching new players. All right, let's talk about the rest of the memory deck. When you construct your own memory deck, when you're building your deck from scratch, this is going to be a great way to put silver bullet cards or cards that really help you advance your strategy, because these cards are going to be available to you once per turn. So you can actually either pull one of these cards out and play it, or you can choose to level up your champion. You can't do both unless your champion lets you, like Lorraine here. So when she comes into play, you get to go get a level 0 weapon. So on any other turn where you don't level up your champion, you can go grab one of these, provided you can pay for the cost. So here we have an ornamental greatsword. This is a Regalia weapon, Guardian Warrior Sword. Even though it says Guardian Warrior Sword, any champion can actually use the ornamental greatsword, and that's true for every other item. So we have here the Bauble of Abundance. It says Cleric Bauble. Lorraine can use it. She's a warrior. This class type will be referenced by other cards that may buff it or have other effects. So here we have an ability that says Class Bonus. On enter, up to 1 target ally you control gains +1 until end of turn. Apply this effect only if your champion's class matches this card's class. So that's exactly what I was talking about here. So this is a Guardian Warrior Sword. So if your champion is a Guardian or a Warrior, you gain the class bonus on enter. Otherwise, it would just be a 1 attack and 1 durability sword. Next up, we have the Bauble of Abundance. This is a 0 cost Regalia item, Cleric Bauble. Banish the Bauble of Abundance. Each player draws a card. So just a great way to get some value over time. The fact that it's 0 just means you can whip it out, whenever you don't want to level up your champion. We also have this Life Essence Amulet, which is a Regalia item, Mage Bauble. Whenever an ally you control dies while it is not your turn, you may banish Life Essence Amulet. If you do, draw cards. Once again, great ways to gain advantage over time. You want to have these ways to refill your hand. Next up, we have this Seer's Sword. This is a 1 cost Regalia weapon, Warrior Sword. Class bonus, on attack, Glimpse 2, which says to glimpse, look at that many cards from the top of your deck. You can put those back on the top or bottom of your deck in any order. It also attacks for 1 and it has 3 durability, which is great, which means you can attack with it 3 times before it breaks. We also have the Sharpening Stone. This is a 1 cost Regalia item, Warrior accessory. Banish the Sharpening Stone. Up to 1 target dagger or sword weapon you control gains +1 until end of turn. Draw a card. And then finally, we have the Warrior's Longsword. This is a Regalia weapon, Warrior Sword. Class bonus, Warrior's Longsword gains +1, which is great, which makes it have 2 attack and 2 durability. Having access to this arsenal of cards throughout the game creates many avenues of play, different options and lines of play you can take, and I think is one of the greatest strengths of Grand Archive. All right, let's talk about the main deck. As I said, this deck is pretty simple. It is made for teaching and learning purposes, but that doesn't mean the cards in here aren't strong. And we do have a good number of pretty powerful cards in the main deck, and I think Weaponsmith here is actually a very good one. So this is a 2-cost ally warrior human. She has 1 attack and 3 health, and it says class bonus. At the beginning of your recollection phase, put a durability counter on target weapon you control. So basically, at the beginning of your recollection phase, you can make it so you can attack just 1 more time with a weapon. This is actually really good in this deck, and it means you can keep attacking with weapons over and over again, and they don't break. So you get that good, mid to late game advantage. So this deck has 2 weaponsmiths in it. We also have the Honorable Vanguard. This is a 2-cost, 1 attack, 2 health, ally warrior human with floating memory, which says, while paying for a memory cost, you may banish this card from your graveyard to pay 1 for that cost, which is really great. So typically in Grand Archive, how you pay for a card, let's say we have this Weaponsmith in our hand and these 2 other cards, right? So this is our hand currently. In order to play this Weaponsmith, we need to put this many cards from our hand down into our memory. So we play the Weaponsmith, and then we take 2 cards, any 2 cards that we want in our hand, and we put them face down into our memory. Now, we will get these back at the beginning of the next turn, or we can use these to pay for these cards in our material deck. And that's basically how you pay for the cards in this material deck, unless you have a card with floating memory in your graveyard, in which case you can use this card in your graveyard and banish it from the game instead of paying for the cost of one of the cards in your material deck. And that includes your items, weapons, as well as your champion as you choose to level up. So yeah, that's what this floating memory is. So it's great to play these early, to block with them, to have them die so you can use them as resources later to summon your powerful cards from your material deck. So the demo deck comes with 3 of those Honorable Vanguards. We're gonna set those aside here. Let's talk about the Banner Knight, which is a pretty sturdy unit. The Banner Knight is a 2-cost warrior human with 1 attack and 3 health. And he says class bonus, level 2+. Other allies and weapons you control gain 1 attack, and that's really great. So if you are playing with a champion that has the same class as him, which is a warrior, so if we're playing with a warrior, and we are, and that champion's level is 2 or higher, then this effect takes place. So early game, this can just be a body to take up space, but in the mid to late game, this can power up all of our allies and our weapons. So the Banner Knight is actually quite strong for a 2-drop here, and we get 3 of those in the demo deck here. We also have the Crusader of Asa. This is just a really good defensive card. This is a 3-cost ally warrior human. Crusader of Asa enters the field rested, which means he cannot block or attack when you play him. Unlike other card games, any unit that you play that comes into play not rested can be used to attack immediately. Another thing to note is when you block, you actually use them to deal the damage. So if you are in a combat situation and your blocker is already rested, they cannot do damage back to the attacker. So it's just an important thing to note that sets this apart from other card games. Being a 2/4 is actually great, and he also has this ability, class bonus, Intercept, which says, whenever your champion is attacked while this ally is awake, you may redirect that attack to this ally. Apply this effect only if your champion's class matches this card's class. So it's just a great way to protect your champion from dying, great way to slow the game down and to play it at your own pace. So we have 2 Crusader of Asa here. We also have the Esteemed Knight, very similar to the Crusader of Asa. This one is an ally warrior human, which with class bonus Intercept, same as the Crusader, but this one is a 2/3 instead of a 2/4. The big difference here, a little bit less health, but does not come into play rested. Pretty good all-around unit. We have 3 of the Esteemed Knight in this deck. We also have our trusty steed. What good is a Legion of Knights without their trusty steeds? This is a 4-cost ally tamer animal horse. So tamer is actually a class in Grand Archive. And it says, on enter, another target ally you control gains +2 attack until end of turn, which is pretty good for this demo deck. And the trusty steed is a 1/3. Comes with 2 of these. We also have the large veteran soldier, a 5-cost ally warrior human with floating memory. Like I said, this is a great card to play early, even though it is a 5-cost, to block with it or attack with it, have it die, and then use it as a resource later in the game to pay for cards from our material deck. Also, it's a 2/3. Costing 5 isn't as daunting as it is in other card games because, like I said, you use cards from your hand to pay for that cost. And when you start the game, you draw a hand of 7 cards. You can immediately play this veteran soldier. So you play the veteran soldier plus, 5 cards from your hand. So you can play this turn 1 if you wanted to, which I think is actually not too bad of a turn 1 play because you will get all those cards from memory back the next turn. So we have 3 of those in this deck. We also have some attacks and abilities. This is the opening cut. So this is a normal 1-cost attack, warrior sword attack. It says class bonus. As long as you have exactly 1 card in your memory, opening cut gains +2. So it's called opening cut. So if this is the first card you play and you pay for it with 1, you will have exactly 1 card in your memory. Therefore it gets +2 and attacks for 3. Like I mentioned earlier, your champion cannot attack unless they have a weapon or an ability that lets them do so. You don't have to have a sword here to use it. That's just kind of like the flavor of the attack, the type of attack for other cards that cares about. So we have 2 of the opening cuts here, very efficient attack. We also have the Reckless Slash. This is just a very, very simple attack. It's just a normal attack warrior sword, and it has an attack of 3. This is kind of just like your bread and butter attack action. So we have 2 of those. We also have the Inspiring Call. This is a 3-cost action warrior skill. It's fast, which means you can use it at the fast timing. So if you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, for example, it's kind of like an instant. Same with Flesh and Blood, kind of like an instant here. This card costs 2 less to activate if your champion has attacked this turn, and it says allies you control gain +1 until the end of turn. Put the top card of your deck into your memory. So this is great. So it does ramp us. Remember, our memory are the cards that we play face down to pay for the cards from our main deck. So putting a card from our deck into the memory is almost like drawing a card because we get this card back our next turn. So yeah, pumps up our dudes and sort of draws us a card. So this is a great card here. So we have 2 of these. And we also have, last but not least, the Sudden Steel. This is a 6-cost attack warrior sword with class bonus efficiency. This card costs level less to activate. Level refers to your champion's level. Apply this effect only if your champion's class matches this card's class. So if we have a level 2 Lorraine, this card only costs 4 to play, and it is a 5 damaging attack, which for these demo decks is quite strong. And there you have the Grand Archive Lorraine demo deck. Like mentioned before, these demo decks are to be given out for free at your local game store in the future. If you want your LGS to carry Grand Archive, please ask them to carry it and ask them to check out the Grand Archive website and to click all those links and request to carry the game from their distributor. You can also currently get these demo decks at events and conventions where the Grand Archive team is present, and I'm sure you can find it online, various places to buy secondhand things as well. But the intent of these decks is to learn and play Grand Archive, and I think it does a fantastic job of that. So thank you for watching today's video about Grand Archive. I plan to do more Grand Archive videos as things ramp up. I think this game is a ton of fun, has an amazing, beautiful art style, and is mechanically unique enough for me to be interesting. It has a lot of similar mechanics to other card games you may have played, but I really, really like the material deck. I love how you have access to this at all time. I can think of like so many different possibilities for this for competitive decks in the future, depending on what kind of cards we get. I love the fact that you can mix and match the elements with your champion. So every champion can be any element, which is awesome. So you have tons and tons of deck building possibilities in this game. You're not immediately, pigeonholed into one thing being or another. You can play Water Lorraine, you can play Wind Lorraine or Fire Lorraine, and those decks will be significantly different from each other. We have multiple classes. In the first set, we have Mage, Warrior, Tamer, and Assassin. So this is going to be a robust game at launch. I'm really excited to diving into it, to building decks, to customizing my material deck and the class and the elements. I think it's just going to be a grand old time. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps grow the channel and helps bring more awareness to these excellent games that we all love. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.